Going.
Go ahead, Jessica. You're good to go.
Okay, perfect. All right, welcome. My name's Dr. Jessica Dennison. You are joining me for our session on Show Your Students the World with Virtual Reality. All right. And then founding partner SJSU School of Information is a part of the library's 2.0 conference. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about me. My name is Dr. Jessica Dennison. I'm the library media teacher at Kettering Fairmont High School in Kettering, Ohio. If you're not familiar with Ohio, Kettering is located just outside of about an hour up I-75 from Cincinnati. I've been in my position for almost 6 years. And then previous to my position as a library media teacher at a high school, I was on the other end of education and worked in preschools as a curriculum advisor. I have my bachelor's degree in early childhood education, my master's degree in library media K-12, and then my doctorate of philosophy in education. I'm married to another doctor. He's a psychologist, and we joke around about the fact that we are the Dennison. His first name's Jesse, my first name's Jessica, but I'm the original Dr. Dennison. And then we have one kid. Her name's Ella Grace. She is 11 years old and just began middle school this year. So my hair colorist has been enjoying the extra business that she gets from me as my hair has started to turn gray, as my daughter keeps me on my toes. We're a Star Wars and Disney loving family. So when we're not in Ohio, you can find us in Florida, visiting all the Disney parks. So our direction this evening or this afternoon, depending on what time zone that you're in, I'm going to talk about how I've gotten my virtual reality program up and running. The type of equipment that I use, how I collaborate with teachers, and then some sample collaborations that I've done this year and in previous years, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. And I think once we get to the question portion, we'll go ahead and do hand raise for those questions. During the session, as I'm talking, if you have questions, if you want to drop them in the chat, I'll make sure to get to those first, because sometimes we have ideas that pop into our heads and we want to get those thoughts out right away. So while I'm speaking, if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat and then we'll have time dedicated at the end. All right. So just a little bit about how I got started. And if you're a Star Wars fan, it's definitely dark side all the way in my family. So I started in my position as a long-term sub. And it was a long-term sub position. So naturally it became a year-long job interview. And a coworker and I stumbled into articles about virtual reality and started to put our heads together in terms of ways that this could be incorporated into the library and into the program at our school, so that we were providing opportunities for students that extended beyond the classroom and weren't experiences that they get to have on a day-to-day basis. So we put together a budget, and administration loved it. They approved all of our purchases. And we started off with LG prepaid phones as our devices for our class set. And then we also purchased an Oculus and an HTC Vive. And these were connected to gaming laptops that wound up being about $1,500 a piece. So we had two standalone headsets and then a class set where we were able to do some minor or some small virtual experiences. Over the course of that first year, my class set needed some work and needed some updating so that I could bring additional experiences to our students. So materials that I needed to kind of get things up and running in a way that was going to benefit our students and benefit the school were iPod touches, plastic headsets, an internet connection, access to YouTube, and then time and space. So breaking down what that ended up costing me. So I have a set of 30 in my space, and I have a pretty sizable budget that I work with each year in my library. So my iPod touches at a set of 30 were $199 each, and then the plastic headsets that I use are $20 each. So this brought a chunk of my budget was dedicated to this, but it was well worth the $6,500 that it cost me to get this portion of my virtual reality program up and running. So equipment that I use, and these are simple, very basic headsets. So they're plastic, and the tab that you slide the device in is plastic as well. And then I use iPod touches. So they're a little bit smaller than the headset. And usually what I do to kind of any light that comes in is I'll put a laminated piece of black paper over the outside of that iPod. So this is what I use for equipment. And then prior to the pandemic, we actually had access to Google Expeditions. And this was phenomenal for implementing virtual reality in our in my space. Unfortunately, Google retired Google Expeditions, so I had to kind of get creative about how I was still able to offer experiences to students in my building using the equipment that I have. So YouTube has a number of 360 videos that will work with my iPod touches and plastic headsets. So what I do for my teachers is they'll come to me with a topic, and I go through YouTube and curate lists for them that are associated with that topic. So then teachers have the ability to go through, look to see if the content matches what they need. We can make revisions, and then each of the iPod touches will run this playlist, and it plays straight through. So when students get started with a video playlist, it goes straight through. And my English department has really jumped on with this. You can see at least one of my teachers' names on there. And they come to me with their novels like, hey, we're studying Shakespeare right now. Hey, we're studying Night by Elie Wiesel right now. What can you provide that's going to give additional context to what we're reading? So typically my role in putting this content together is to curate videos, and then they select what they want their students to view. So it does put a little bit more work on our classroom teachers, because they do need to go through and watch to make sure that it is meeting the needs of their students. But I have really good relationships with our classroom teachers and a lot of trust with our classroom teachers. So typically I put this together, they skim through it, they're like, this looks great. And then we get it rolling within our building. So again, my collaboration steps, the teacher brings me an idea or a topic, and then I put together a playlist related to that topic. And then the teacher previews material either on their laptop or they come down to the library and they use the iPod touches and plastic headsets. So then they're able to experience virtual reality themselves. And then the class gets scheduled. And typically what happens is someone's walking by the library when this is going on, or they meet up at lunch and they talk about this experience. And then usually when I have a session, I have 3 or 4 more sessions that get scheduled immediately after, because word of mouth just generates additional interest from other teachers. And then sometimes word of mouth gets out to the community, and then I have other schools contacting me within our district wanting me to do the same thing with them. So this is a newspaper article that's actually hanging in my office from, I want to say 2019. And it was a first grade class that got wind of what I was doing with Google Expeditions, and they set up a field trip to come to the library at the high school so that they could have that same experience. And this is a relationship that continues on from year to year. So back in January, I was at Oakview Elementary, which is across town. I brought my equipment over, and we were in their gym doing this experience as well. Which that was really neat for me to be able to go and visit another school and do this. Typically, I just do it in my space at my school. So this is just pictures from that collaboration from January, and this is with a first grade class, and I'm a high school teacher, so it's a little out of my element because it's been a while since I've worked with the younger ones, but this collaboration, the first grade teacher contacted me because they were learning about holidays and how different countries celebrate holidays. So she wanted to provide her students with the opportunity to get to go and visit Italy and get to go and visit France, because as they were learning about how France celebrates the holidays, they were also talking about different monuments around France. And what better way to introduce students to monuments than virtual reality? Because if we can't take them to that actual location, virtual reality allows us to take them to that location without them even leaving the building. Let me tell, I get so excited talking about this experience because in the top with the girl with the purple sweater, you can see adult legs there. I had our entire tech team from our district came and helped me out with this, and they were so excited. They were just as excited as the first graders were. And just the amount of joy and excitement that was going on in this elementary school gym with this experience. It was just phenomenal. And then shortly after we did this, I had a fourth grade teacher from another elementary school in our district say, "Hey, I saw on Facebook that you did this experience with first grade. Can you come to my fourth grade classroom and do this?" So currently I'm working with our tech team to develop a district-wide kit that we can have go around to schools, because I'm one person that can't be in every building at the same time. All right, so next, this is one that I did with our freshman English teachers. And I think 3 of them have now come down to do this experience. So our freshman students read Romeo and Juliet. And our students were engaged with 360 videos on YouTube that were related to Romeo and Juliet. So this list was curated ahead of time, and they got to go and view sites in Verona, Italy. They got to see a model Globe Theater. There also was a video on this list where they were center stage of a reenactment of Romeo and Juliet. So there were actors all around them acting out this play that they have been reading. And I think they also got to view Juliet's tomb, and then they saw the famous balcony as well. And this took a little bit of, these are freshmen, and freshmen can be a little immature. And just below the balcony is a statue of Juliet. And it is said that if you go and touch her bosom, that you receive good luck. So I had to kind of forefront that with, you're going to see people doing this, and it's, try not to giggle. It's for good luck. And our English teachers handled that beautifully, because they spoke about the connection within the play where they refer to Juliet's bosom being of good luck. So this is one other experience that I've done, and this video is going to play. Okay, so these students are material science students, and at the beginning of this school year, part of our continued COVID protocols at the beginning of the school year was field trips were still not allowed within our district. So our material science teacher takes her students to a steel forge or a steel plant every year when they're doing their metals unit. And she actually approached me about, is there an opportunity that we can give to the students where they get something similar, but are still within our field trip requirement? So this was one of the stations that we had set up. We had within the main part of the library, there were mediascapes, which were basically big TVs on wheels that were connected to YouTube videos associated with a steel forge. And then in the room that these pictures are showing, they were experiencing 360 videos of steel plants in action. So it was really loud in here this day. So you could hear like steel being ground, and people just talking, and lots of equipment moving around. The kid in the top right-hand corner, he felt like he had to try and touch everything. So it was a great experience. In the video on the left-hand side, you'll notice a guy in a tie. That's actually our chief technology officer. Anytime I do an experience like this, all of our board officials like to come out and get to experience it as well. So it's not just fun for the students, it's fun to watch the adults do it as well. So this next one, this is for a freshman class was doing the Odyssey, and classroom teacher wanted an opportunity to connect students with Odysseus's journey. So I was able to, this one was a little tricky, but we were able to put together a list that were locations that were like modern day locations of where it was suspected that Odysseus traveled. So there was a lot of boat action, like students were on boats, and like in the far left-hand corner, you can see them kind of leaning down. So it was a neat experience to watch them just take this all in. So, and then the next one, this is a video. So this one was a collaboration with an English teacher. They were in the middle of reading Night by Elie Wiesel. And students actually visited Auschwitz, and we were able to locate a 360 video from Auschwitz, modern day, that had a tour guide, and she spoke about her experience when she was at Auschwitz. So this, while it was a very heavy lesson, students were very engaged. Normally, when I'm doing virtual reality with students, there's a lot of chit chat back and forth. And while this video, it sounded loud in there because of the sound from their devices, there was not much chatter between students. Normally they're reaching out and trying to grab one another and like, hey, do you see this? And that was not the case with this. Again, it was a very somber activity, but our classroom teacher was very fortunate and very excited to be able to help her students kind of understand what that experience was like. Right. So then future direction for me, because things are always changing and evolving in the field of technology, and virtual reality just continues to grow. So looking towards next school year, I already have several collaborations under my belt. Like you noticed a trend with English teachers. So they speak to one another and they'll go and say, oh, hey, I just did this really cool thing with Dr. Dennison. And then they all come for me. Usually what happens is, I reach out to teachers as students share with me about what they're learning in their classes. And then I also continue to publish a monthly newsletter highlighting activities, because sometimes teachers don't realize that these tools are here. And really the way that my schedule gets filled is through my own marketing and student marketing, and then other teachers about what's going on. So, all right. That is all that I have. So I'm going to move into questions real quick. So just looking at what I have in the chat. Let's see. We are starting a public library and we were looking at starting VR. Is there a reason you went with the iPod Touch over something like the Oculus? So the reason I went with iPod Touches is because when I purchased them, Oculus had not released their standalone devices yet. So this is what kind of worked with my budget. The Oculus that I have has to connect to either a gaming laptop or a gaming device. So I do have a student that brings in his standalone Oculus and plays it at lunch. And then he will stand in the middle of the library and kids will walk in and he's just going at it with Beat Saber, and kids will stop and take selfies with him. But iPod Touch is just what worked for me. I think over time, I'm going to eventually transition away from iPod Touches. But that was just what worked for me with my budget when I purchased them a couple years ago. Protocol for sanitizing headsets. I use Clorox wipes. I've been fortunate with the spacing between classes. So usually the way scheduling works in our building is that teachers will kind of flip-flop between preps. So some of our freshman teachers also teach like sophomore or junior English as well. So they might have their freshmen schedule, but not their juniors. So that's kind of helped with time passing, but Clorox wipes definitely work phenomenally. I haven't done anything math yet. That is on my list of, we all, being in public school over the summer, I start to kind of plan for the following year. Our math teachers are kind of tricky sometimes, so they like to stay in their classrooms, and but that's a department that I've been trying to break into. How real is the presentation of reality in other countries or cultures? Is the expectation that all presentations portray an approved version of events and how people live, and even where you are allowed to go virtually? So I don't know if I'm answering this correctly. So basically with my videos, I mean, they're ones that people have taken 360 cameras to that location and filmed those. I was putting together one of Italy today for our special needs classroom, and in the video you could see someone holding a selfie stick out with the 360 camera on it, and that was how they took that in. You know, obviously we go with the kind of go with the motion that you know, people set up situations when they film to make it look nice. So you know, it's not going to be exactly real, but again, it's about providing that experience that students wouldn't normally get in the classroom. Let's see what else we got. Are there some studies or guides that I can use to help convince them to go younger? I'm going to go ahead and drop my email in the chat, because you've got my research brain, and that probably will be what I do tomorrow to to fill a little chunks of time. So if you would like to contact me for further information about virtual reality, my email is there. But I don't have any on hand right now in terms of research, but I will get that going. All right, we have about 2 minutes left. If anybody else has questions, if they didn't get a chance to drop them in the chat, they're there too. And I had seen someone put, "Yay, go Star Wars." We're big Star Wars fans in the family. And thank you all for the great feedback. All right. Well, if there are not any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and hope that you all have a great rest of the conference. And thank you so much for attending.